morning. It is so good to have you here at the 11:11 service. This morning I am Reverend Linda McDermott. I am hosting these services while Tom, who is the pastor for this service, while he is on a renewal leave. He will be back on Easter Sunday. So whether you're on a Facebook watch party, watching it live stream from the church website, or whether you're watching it later in the week, glad you're here. We got a great service for today. Let's start with a couple of announcements. First, we have a new 3-week study beginning on March the 25th. It is entitled Belief and Doubt, Twin Sisters of a Healthy and Thriving Faith. And we'll be using a book by Brian McLaren, Faith After Doubt, Why Your Beliefs Stopped Working and What to Do About It. You'll need to register for the class and order the book. You can do both of those by going online at the First United Methodist Church Fort Worth website and register there. It'll give you all the information you need. It's a 3-week class, Thursday mornings. I hope you can join us. Next, be sure and check out Crafting Difficult Conversations with Daryl Parker and some of the members of the 1111 community. This happens on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, and they've had just some fabulous discussions on there. Very, very interesting topics and some real honesty and great conversation. Monday nights at 7 o'clock. Check the church website for that link as well. And also, as always, please register your attendance. Just let us know you're here. If you're live stream, you can register right there on the page, the live stream page. If you are on Facebook or a watch party, just hit the like button. That lets us know that you're here, and that's very helpful to us. Even if you're doing that on Monday or Tuesday, you can still get that turned in, and we can count you. Appreciate that. So, if you would like to make a contribution, that's also there on the live stream page. It's also available on the church's website. So just be sure and do that. That is such an important way to help us continue this particular service and all the other programs and ministries of First United Methodist Church, making a difference in people's lives. So today, another great service. Brad Thompson and the 1111 band have another new video special for today, and we'll be bringing back one of our old and favorite ones at the end. Jakey Cabe is going to be doing a reading for us from Rumi, followed by a time of reflection by Dr. Lynn Deloney, and our scripture reading today is really going to be fun. It's a montage of readings on love from the scriptures by various members of our 1111 community, and then I'll be giving the message today. So grab some coffee, get comfortable, as John Taylor opens us now with the welcome candle.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. It doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times, come yet again.
Speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass. Gain, though I may give all I possess, in striving soul my love profess, but be not given by love prophets soon turn strangely thin.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And the soul lies down in that grass. The world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
Let us pray. O Holy One, you who through your grace awaken us to the divine spark deep within, we give thanks that you invite us to experience and participate in the mystery of your ongoing creation. Help us to know ourselves and each other through the fullness of your love. Help us to hear the whisper of your wisdom and to be attentive to your nearness, even in our dreams. Help us pass through the thresholds of this and each moment, awaken to the wonder of your healing presence, and attune to the sacred music that plays throughout all your creation. All this we pray in and through your holy name. Amen.
Now faith, hope, and love remain, these three things, and the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13.
Love should be shown without pretending. Hate what is evil. Hold on to what is good. Romans 12:9.
I give you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you always must love each other. John 13:34.
You must not take revenge nor hold a grudge against any of your people. Instead, you must love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Leviticus 19, verse 18.
And over all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity, as yourself.
If a person owns the kinds of things we need to make it in the world, but refuses to share with those in need, is it even possible that God's love lives in him? My little children, don't just talk about love as an idea or a theory. Make it your true way of life and live in the pattern of gracious love. 1 John 3:17 and 18.
You have heard that it was said, you must love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who harass you. Matthew 5:43 through 44.
Love each other like the members of your family. Be the best at honoring each other. Romans 12:10.
If I speak in tongues of human beings and of angels, but I don't have love, I'm a clanging gong or a clashing cymbal.
If I have the gift of prophecy and I know all the mysteries and everything else, and if I have such complete faith that I can move mountains, but I don't have love, I'm nothing.
If I give away everything that I have and hand over my own body to feel good about what I've done, but I don't have love,
I receive no benefit whatsoever. 1 Corinthians 13.
All the law has been fulfilled in a single statement. Love your neighbor. Galatians 5:4.
Now, dear friends, I am requesting that we love each other. It's not as though I'm writing a new command to you, but it's one we have had from the beginning. 2 John 1, verse 5.
He has told you, human one, what is good and what the Lord requires from you, to do justice, embrace faithful love, and walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:4.
Dear friends, let's love one another, because love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. The person who doesn't love does not know God, because God is love. 1 John 4, verses 7 and 8.
God is love.
God is love. Thank you, Maura. I really appreciate you doing that, all of you who read the scriptures today. Thank you so much. God is love. I hope that every child can come to know the truth of that statement, that God is love. It is such a short and simple four-letter word, love, but it has the power to change everything. Everything. You'd think love would be easy to understand or explain, but I think it's kind of hard to put into words. We have so much around us that surrounding us with these notions of love. We have love songs, we have lack of love songs, we have love poems, love letters, love emojis. We use them all the time. But what is it? The writer of the letter we call 1 John says a lot of things about love as related to God. He's the one that says God is love. But he also says this: everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Everyone who loves. Whoever does not love does not know God. There is no fear in love. Love expels fear, particularly the fear of punishment. Ooh, we need to talk about that in terms of the theology of hell, but we'll do that later. And then the most profound and fundamental theological statement ever made: God is love. God is love. That three-word theology is as deep as whole volumes that have been written to try to explain it. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I've been reading a book by Brian McLaren. It's called Faith After Doubt. And sorry, it's called Faith After Doubt. It's the one I'm going to be using in our book discussion beginning on March the 25th. And in one chapter, McLaren talks about Paul envisioning not just a new religion, but a new way of living. And radical, a radical new way, radical is the right term to use here, because the word means going back to your roots, getting to the heart of things. And so what Paul describes is what Jesus taught, and it is what Jesus' own tradition knew, but too often forgot. God is love. This new way of life, of love, well, I'm just going to read a little bit out of McLaren as he describes this scene of Paul meeting with the followers of Jesus, Jewish followers of Jesus in Galatia, and what that might have looked like. Here's what he writes. I picture Paul as a wiry, old, bald guy who squints. I imagine him in Galatia in a crowded house, leaning forward, elbows on knees, almost vibrating with intensity as he speaks to a couple of dozen people in flickering lamplight. The only thing that matters, he whisper shouts, is faith expressing itself in love. People get restless. What about circumcision? Moses commanded that. Paul, utterly insignificant. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. What about Gentiles? Kosher food laws? Nope. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. The what-ifs and the abouts, what-abouts continue, and each time Paul responds with the same words, finally ending in a voice so gentle, it is barely more than a whisper. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. I see his eyes brim with tears. About a third of the people stand up and walk out, mumbling, a rebel, a heretic, a liberal. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. Our physical difference, insignificant. Our doctrines, insignificant. Our sexual orientations, insignificant. Our ethnicity, our nationality, our orthodoxies or beliefs or even lack of them, insignificant. Heresy, you say? Well, then take it up with Jesus, because he said, one commandment I leave to you, that you love one another. So decide for yourself. Love. Oh, there she goes again. Bleeding heart, liberal, snowflake, heretic. Right. Well, just because it's simple doesn't make it easy. Love is a full-on life commitment. It's a practice. And most every time when we are called to love, it's not the times that are easy because we like something. Real love is counterintuitive, and we have to make it a choice. A choice. And so it is very often and necessarily a decision when we commit ourselves to a new way of living in love. And it's radical. Like I said, it's radical because radical means going back to the original covenant. It's going back to our roots. It's not totally new. It's been part of Judaism. It was what Jesus inherited. Jesus directed his own followers to go back to their roots, which was love and blessing. Now, when we talk about love, it seems that there are 4 areas that we need to focus on. Love of neighbor, love of creation, love of self, and love of God. So just real quickly, let's look at those. Love of neighbor. Your next door neighbor, our fellow citizens of the nation, people in other countries, all people would fit into this category. Love, with no exceptions, no discrimination. So, no male or female, liberal or conservative, nice, not nice, agrees with me, doesn't agree with me, gay, straight, binary, dark skin, pale skin, atheist, Jesus follower, other, no exception. Love them. Seek to enhance the good. Seek for justice. Love. Then there is love of creation, all creation. Animals, air, trees, plants, soil, water, not just to care for it and protect it as we must, for we humans really are their greatest threat. Just as a sidebar, you know, in some ways, as we've been dealing with this coronavirus, we probably need to accept the understanding that from the perspective of nature, the whole ecosystem in which we live, from that perspective alone, we are the virus that threatens life. Viruses can be nature's defense against exploitation or destruction and death when it comes to ecosystems. We're all a part of that ecosystem. And when one thing gets out of control, begins to destroy, nature will seek a way to fight back. And love of nature isn't just limited to protecting it. It is admiring it, being in awe of it, letting it speak to us, teach us. It doesn't just exist for our own use or pleasure. That's not love. Love of self. Now this one gets a little tricky because it sounds the opposite of what we supposedly think about what it means to be a person of faith. What would it be like, though, if we truly loved ourselves? What if we treated ourselves with respect, valued our life, nurtured and cared for ourselves, not at the expense of others? Got to see number 1 on that list. But not hedonism either. You can look at number 1 and number 2 on the list for that one. But to be honestly good to ourselves. As part of God's creation, as God's own beloved ones, this is to deal with shame or guilt or selfishness or greed. Deal with those things as the destructive, soul-killing things that they are. Instead of diminishing you, look at them honestly and let them teach you. Guilt? Did you actually do something destructive or harmful? Then name it, admit it, learn from it, and move on to a better way. Greed? Recognize it as the spiraling inward that makes your world small and disconnects you from all of that brings life to you, to everyone. Selfishness, same thing. Love yourself is not conceited, not shameless, not self-aggrandizing. It's allowing God to expose what is good in you and allowing everything that would enhance that. And finally, but certainly not insignificantly, love of God. And actually, if we do the other three, we're on pretty good ground there. How do we best love God? 1 John tells us pretty plainly. A lot of people worship God, admire God, speak reverently about God, explain God, teach about God. But as Paul said in a letter he wrote to some people living in Corinth, you probably know this, without love, these are just noisy cymbals or clanging gongs, just noise. Jesus never asked anyone, never asks us to admire him. He asks us to follow him. Do as I do, love as I love, which is pretty radical, literally radical, getting back to our roots. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. So if this was our initial covenant, if this is what Jesus taught, if this is what the followers of Jesus were meant to do, why and how did we corrupt such a beautiful truth? There's lots of ways to answer that question, but I think it has its roots in our understanding of what it means to be a person of faith. Faith for us, for so many right now, has become over time an intellectual assent to a set of ideas. Another word that gets in our way is faith. Basically, it means trust. But that is not a trust in doctrines or dogma. That's not what it is. Let me read something that Richard Rohr said. Unfortunately, the notion of faith that emerged in the West was much more rational assent to the truth of certain mental beliefs, rather than a calm and hopeful trust that God is inherent in all things and that this whole thing is going somewhere good. Were you aware that when Paul talks about our having faith in Jesus, it's in Romans 3, that's most likely a misinterpretation? If you look through interpretations, translations of the Bible, all but a few of those say we must have faith in Jesus. But actually it says, and this is the one place that the old King James Version gets it right on this one time, because, and the new King James changed it. But it actually should read, at least according to many linguists, it should say that we need to have the faith of Christ. You see the difference? One is more of an intellectual assent. I have faith in Jesus. I proclaim Jesus as my Lord. I confess, I believe these things. The other is a trust, the same kind of trust that Jesus had. Love isn't trusting in Jesus, it's trusting like Jesus. And in so doing, being in the world like Jesus, being with others like Jesus, making choices like Jesus would. So, through the eyes of love, we can begin to look or relook at our inherited faith tradition differently, at least for most of us. So when we hear the word, say, salvation, and I hesitate to use it because it's such a loaded word, but And this is where Brian McLaren was helpful and some others that I've been reading. Salvation. Hear that as a transformation that brings justice and peace for the earth and all its creatures. Don't you love that? Salvation is transformation that brings justice and peace for the earth and all creation. It is not, as many would have us believe, an evacuation plan to get souls into heaven after we die. Here's another one. Atonement, or Jesus' death on the cross. How about not looking at it in terms of being a blood sacrifice necessary to assuage the infinite fury of a hot-tempered supreme being, but as a revelation of self-giving love facing down imperial cruelty with death-defying non-violence. Different, isn't it? Sin. Also hesitate to use that one. It's got so much baggage with it. How about sin not as a legal infraction for which we fear punishment from an angry cosmic police force, just like 1 John said, perfect love casts out fear. There is no fear of punishment. But we go there, don't we? Sin as more of a relational disconnection, a broken solidarity, a harm inflicted upon the common good when I or you or we fail to live in love. And then this one, gospel. What do we say? What do we mean when we hear the word gospel? How about not so much about information about how we avoid hell, but as good news for all people that there is a better way to live, a better path to follow, and that if we are willing to rethink everything, especially through the eyes of love, we can start walking that path right now, just as we are. Nothing else matters except faith expressing itself in love. You know, this is no profound example, but it's just something that happened the other day, and I have to admit it really bothered me. I was at a memorial service. It was in our sanctuary. It had been carefully set up so that it allowed distancing between people, families, individuals. And it was an act of love to go through that much trouble to protect each other in that situation, because we're still needing to be careful about the danger of this virus that for many, not for all, but for a lot, has been deadly. Tom and I personally have lost 6 friends, not just acquaintances, friends, to this virus. Anyway, so I'm a little sensitive about that. But there was a group about 10 feet away from us, and they sat together. I guess they were their own little pod. And as soon as they sat down, masks were required, of course. As soon as they sat down, about 3 of them pulled their masks down. One was just below their nose, the other 2 under their chin. One of our ushers came by, smiled, very politely welcomed them, and then indicated, you need to pull your mask up. Which they did until she left. And they pulled it back down, rolled their eyes, and began to snicker like, this is so ridiculous. Then someone, apparently who was a friend of theirs, someone who was actually involved in the service, was a close friend of the one we were remembering. She came by, said hi to them, and she also indicated, you need to pull your mask up. And again, they did it until she left. They went right back. Another big eye roll. As the service went on and the preacher was speaking these beautiful words of hope and just these wonderful, beautiful words about the love of God, those 3 people were the very ones that were raising their hands in praise to God. The very same ones who had ignored the request to do such a simple thing as wearing a piece of cloth that could very well have saved someone's life. I was dumbfounded. 1 John says, if we can't love in the simplest of things, how much more will we fail in the big things, like forgiving, like compassion, like sacrificial love? If we can't even do that, how can we really say that we love our neighbors? And according to 1 John, how can we really say we love God? We can't. Don't tell me you love God if you won't love your neighbor. One commandment I leave to you, said Jesus, that you love one another. The only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in acts of love.
Just one nation, and God is too big for just one religion. What to the practice of being in the flow? What to the tears of the things we let go? What to the moment we live in right now? What to the east, west, north, and south? To the east, to the west, to the north and south. To the east, to the west, love people never gonna stop. To the east, to the west, to the north and south, to the east, to the west. One love, people never gonna stop. This whole thing seems upside down. The whole wide world keeps turning around. This whole thing seems upside down. The whole wide world keeps turning around. This whole thing seems upside down. The whole wide world keeps turning around. This whole thing seems upside down.